careful consideration to the SABC's business operations and the unsuccessful negotiations with the PSL to secure the broadcast rights for soccer matches on radio. The SABC and PSL could not reach a consensus with regards to the terms of the contract, and this has unfortunately led to the SABC not being able to close the deal with the PSL. For clarity on this and other issues, we're now joined by the SABC Board chairperson, Bongumusa Makhathini. Mr. Makhathini, a very good morning to you and welcome, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
First and foremostly, how did we get to this point where we will not broadcast the PSL matches on radio?
I think the main goal for the board and the executive directors of the SABC was to review all commercial contracts to make sure that they are balanced and also they make commercial sense. So that's basically one of the main priorities of the board and the executive directors of the SABC, to ensure that we get SABC to be financially viable. So when you look at the cost of sports rights have been escalating beyond inflation, and it has become unmanageable and unaffordable for us. And as the SABC board and with the executive directors, we've got to make sure that the contract we enter to are making sense commercially and they are balanced. So where we are now, the demands from the PSL are not fair to the SABC, and as the board, we cannot approve such.
What about audiences in far-flung areas which really rely on radio commentary, where they do not have any access to television? How will they be impacted now?
It is unfortunate that South Africans who rely on radio to enjoy their soccer and to get news and information will be affected by this decision. But at the end of the day, we have to balance that with the financial viability of the SABC. If we continue to perpetuate wrong behavior, wrong habits, wrong contracts, we'll never get SABC to work. So at some point we've got to reset. And part of the reset really is to get PSL to also play part. But also it can't be the sole responsibility of the SABC to fund the operations of sport bodies. So we've got to also get other partners, to get the Department of Sports and everybody else who cares and who's got a mandate to develop sport in this country to chip in and play their part.
I'm sure there will be ramifications on both sides now for the SABC as well as for the PSL. What would those be?
Firstly, that's why we've issued a statement to apologize to the South Africans, more especially even our blind listeners who rely on radio solely for information, and we sincerely apologize. But we also expect citizens to understand that as the board, we have a responsibility to turn around the SABC. And turning around the SABC will mean re-looking at some of the decisions that were made before. And anything that does not make commercial sense, we cannot approve. We cannot enter into irregular contracts. We cannot do things that will worsen the situation at the SABC.
I'm not too sure if you can elaborate on what the contract actually stipulates and what was the deadlock that led to this point where we are now.
I think the main thing, the contract is not currently balanced. It does not make commercial sense for the SABC. SABC will incur costs of production, will send their journalists all around following these clubs, and there will be people who will be placing ads and advertising during these games. It is our view as the SABC that SABC must benefit from revenues that get collected as a result of that. And we have to balance our cost versus what we make out of these kind of games. So where we are now, it's not making sense, and that's why we said we cannot agree to it.
It's a deadlock now, but can the situation still be salvaged, or is this perhaps the final whistle to this negotiation?
Definitely, the situation can still be salvaged. We can still get into negotiations. What we want to be clear is that as a SABC, we care about the viability of this business. We also, at the same time, very sensitive to what the South Africans expect from the SABC. But at the end of the day, people need to understand that to get SABC on a right trajectory, on the financial sustainability, we've got to review and turn around anything that does not make commercial sense. Gone are the days where SABC will perpetuate and do things that don't make commercial sense. We cannot perpetuate that.
Talking about review, the Channel 404, the channel that we are speaking from right now, has got a contract with MultiChoice. Where do we stand with that contract? Because we understand that the contract are supposed to come to an end this month.
Yeah, the negotiations with MultiChoice are at a very advanced stage. At the moment, I wouldn't want to divulge the details of the contract, but the truth of the matter is we are negotiating and we're looking forward to concluding those negotiations with MultiChoice.
Overall, what does the financial situation of the SABC look like right now as we stand?
We are in a financial dire situation as the SABC, and that's why the executive directors started engaging with independent producers and also making sure that our employees understand where we are. But there is a very solid turnaround strategy that the team has put together, which in my view will turn around the SABC. But where we are now, we are struggling to pay and do what we expected to do. And that's why we have to be very disciplined and be very firm in reviewing everything to make sure that we get SABC out of the situation and to a point where everybody will be proud of the SABC and what we can deliver for the citizens.
There are some reports that suggesting that producers and production houses has not been paid. Is that how dire the situation is, and that is what you're talking about, the turnaround strategy?
Definitely, definitely. We've got to turn it around because currently we are not able to honor our monthly obligation financially. But what I want to assure South Africans is that there is a plan, there is a strategy, and part of the decision that relates to PSL is part of the overall strategy to relook at things and carefully consider everything before we agree to any terms.
Should SABC staff be concerned in any way, Chairperson?
SABC staff should be focused on doing their work and doing their best that they can do, because as they deliver to South Africans what is expected, at the end of the day we'll then be able to attract revenues that can turn around the SABC. We don't want them to worry about what executive team is dealing with. We don't want them to worry about what the board is dealing with. What we want them to focus on is doing their best and delivering what is expected of them every day.
There are talks of a bailout as well. Is that on the cards?
We have applied for government guarantees. It's almost a year now, and we're still waiting for feedback from government, because we are of the view that if we can get a government guarantee, that will assist us in approaching financial institutions to look for money. That we've applied for. But of course, it's not the only thing we're looking at. Part of it is also driving costs down. It's also reviewing contracts. It's also making sure that we find other revenue-making streams so that at the end of the day we can have more money coming into the SABC and we become efficient in what we do.
Chairperson, I thank you so much for your time and joining us here this morning, and all the best of luck with the negotiations, and let's hope it's not the final whistle to the PSL saga.
Thank you.
That, of course, is our SABC Board Chairperson, Bongumusa Makhathini, here in studio with us. Now, let's move on to a story that's developing and it's currently going on, the funeral of the late Dean of Health,